Well, welcome everybody. I am excited. I have here Kaley Johnson for a Spotlight Matters conversation. She is a caregiver wellness coach and she specializes in supporting caregivers. So any caregivers out there, listen up. Your girl is in the house today. She is also going to deep dive and talk to us today about self-talk and the power that it truly holds. I am a firm believer is what we think about, we bring about, but the more things that we even voice over our lives, we can claim that into our everyday decisions and our emotions, our energy, everything that goes on in our relationships, all the things. So I'm excited to dive into this conversation with Kaley because I know I've actually spoken some negative things over my life in the past, and I had seen them come to pass. And I was angry at first when things happened, and then I was like reminded quickly, like, you spoke that, Stacy. And so I had to bite my tongue and then start to recognize the power of our words. They are so powerful. And life and death is in the power of the tongue, right? So we can build each other up, or even ourselves, or tear each other down, or ourselves. And so I'm excited to dive into this conversation. So Kaley, just tell the community a little bit more about you and what kind of brought you into this field of helping caregivers and just this amazing niche of self-talk and understanding the power of that. So before we dive into your expertise.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for inviting me here today to talk about this topic that I'm really passionate to talk about. Initially, I'm going to share a piece of my story and how this or how this became so important to me. But really, I experienced coaching originally. I hired a coach, and I had such a transformation through the coaching process that I wanted to help others. I wanted to learn how to do this and just support others because there wasn't anything unique to me. It was just somebody guiding me and supporting me and connecting me back to my personal power. So, I mean, I thought it was something as miraculous as like a cure for cancer. I'm just so excited to share what I've learned, what has transformed in my life. Because like I said, it wasn't unique to me. It's available to anybody. And so that's really what got me into the coaching realm of being the health and the life coach. And then supporting caregivers. I've been a caregiver for over 25 years professionally and personally, to my 92-year-old grandmother who recently just passed away. But I was on a team with my family to help care for her. And that was really a wonderful way to support her. At the same time, there is many challenges that come along with it. So I just feel like caregivers are very undersupported. They are truly superheroes, and so I just am trying to fill in the gap for them and support them, so that they can support the people that they are caring for.
Yes, I love that because caregivers are, kind of overlooked, aren't they?
It's always about the person, the patient who you're caring for or the loved one, which is great. But that person also needs to take care of themselves. Caregivers get sick at an extremely high rate because they do not care for themselves. They put themselves on the back burner, their self-care, their own medical needs, their own well-being, and that really needs to be brought to the surface so that they can be healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. They're stretched in multiple different directions, especially if you're in that space of caregiving, and you have small children or even
Mhm.
teenagers, which can be hard and stressful. And you
Mhm.
have a spouse and you're caring for your parents or grandma,
Mhm.
like that puts a lot of extra pressure on the caregiver. Absolutely.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure, for sure.
So self-care for the caregiver. I love
Yeah, yeah,
that.
definitely.
So tell the community here, what is it about self-talk that actually lights you up, and how is that, how have you taken that whole component and been able to um, just transition your own personal journey and how you now move it forward?
Yeah, the self-talk was just so powerful to me because I wasn't ever really even tuned into it. I didn't recognize how much of it is going on in our subconscious, how much of it's going on in the background that's actually creating the place that we're taking action from. And so really tuning in with that self-talk and recognizing if it is sounding negative or if it's sounding positive. And most often self-talk is negative, most often for people. So just recognizing that and only looking at it through curiosity, not through judgment. But once we build awareness, then we can start tweaking it to being supportive.
Mm. Yeah, so we're really good at supporting others, but supporting
Yeah,
ourselves is a trip up, right?
right, exactly.
So today you were bringing together a topic of self-talk and the power that it holds. Uh,
Yeah.
did you want to dive into that?
Yes, for sure, for sure. So, so today I just want to dive into the self-talk and why it's important and really what is it. So first of all, the self-talk is really our internal dialogue, and it's influenced, like I said, by our subconscious mind, and it reveals our thoughts, our beliefs, our questions, and even our ideas. So self-talk can be both negative and positive, like I had mentioned. It can be encouraging, but it also can be super demotivating. And it's all about building awareness of the self-talk. Like I said, I wasn't even connected to it. I wasn't even tuned into like it was really it's that was actually a thing.
Mm.
So negative self-talk is very common, and it's basically that inner dialogue that we have with ourselves that might be limiting our ability to even believe in ourselves and to reach our full potential. Um, it is any thought that we even have that diminishes our ability to make positive changes in our life, and it's really connected to our self-confidence. So negative self-talk um, can be stressful, but it can also really prevent us from having the life that we truly want. So I just want to share a personal story that kind of explains how shifting my self-talk helped me shift my life. And so I'll just share that if
Yeah,
that's okay.
please. Yeah.
So so I really tried to be the perfect mom, the perfect employee, the perfect wife, um, the perfect daughter, the perfect anything for many, many years. And I thought that if I could just do all the things for everyone else, then I could make a difference in the world. And I didn't really need to focus on myself because I was fine. Um, but what I discovered is that I could only spin so many plates at one time, and eventually they all came crashing down.
Mm.
And I was eventually, I'm sorry, it was really devastating when it happened. It was super sad. Um, it was really disappointing, and the worst of all, it was hard for me to accept that this all happened. Um, and it was really initiated by something that was so far out of my control, but I had convinced myself that I had control of it. So recovering control freak right here. So just recognizing this, but I went through all of the thoughts. I went through, if I could have just tried harder, if I could have just controlled the situation a little better, if I could have been in 10 places at once, then I really could have made that difference, which is really obviously unrealistic. But this is the stories playing in my head and the way that I was talking to myself, like I'm let this all down. And so, but what I learned when I was knocked down is that was absolutely exhausting, spinning all the plates all the time. And what if there was another way? What if there was a way that I hadn't considered before? A way that that helped me, that let me didn't leave me feeling exhausted or impatient or run down or crabby or even judgmental at times. None of the ways that I wanted to be feeling, and definitely not the person that I wanted to be. The other place I started to really pay attention was the way I was talking to myself. It was definitely not supportive. So this is the self-talk piece here. So I really it kind of sounded negative and almost like a bully or a critic. Um, and how I could have done better, how I should have done better, all the things. So I was listening to one of my mentors during this time, and she explained this negative self-talk in a way that really resonated with me. So So I stole this title from her because it really connected it. And she calls it this negative self-talk, the itty bitty bully committee. And that was kind of like how it is in my head. But I was like, wow, okay, that really resonates. So I can kind of make this connection here and start to build awareness. So I really had to build awareness around this piece and get control of the conversation that was taking place in my head. Really just tune into it. And I had to recognize and get honest with myself about the quality of my thoughts, what they sounded like, and really check in and get honest. And when I did, it sounded like nothing I do is good enough. No matter how hard I try, it is still wrong. I'm exhausted, but if I stop or slow down, I might let someone else down. So just recognizing if this sounds familiar, to anyone that's listening.
So
Yeah. So I came to the realization that the most important relationship I have in my life, really, I have to start with myself. And our mental health matters so much. And we really don't ever take the time to acknowledge how much our mental health has an impact on our physical health. And it starts with the way that we talk to ourselves. Like our mental health is really fueled by that internal self-talk. So during this time, I knew something had to change. I knew that I couldn't keep doing all the things all of the time and have the continual itty bitty bully committee in my head anymore. So I was lucky enough to be guided by someone who at that time was really into self-development, and they suggested I write an apology letter to myself, which really sounded kind of strange. But I didn't have anything to lose because I was very desperate for wanting to have a different experience. But when I did this exercise, what happened was a lot of unworthiness started to come up that I was completely unaware of. I was completely detached from this unworthiness pieces that I was feeling. If someone would have asked me, do you feel worthy? I would have said, absolutely. But when I started to get honest with myself and trying to find where this negative self-talk was popping up, this was the aha moment or the bright light. But this is for the first time, I got to start to build awareness around these unworthiness issues, like I said, that I was unaware of, and things started to really make sense then. And my letter sounded something like this. I'm sorry for denying you happiness when that is what you really wanted. I'm sorry for not giving you appropriate time to heal. I'm sorry for not practicing self-care. I'm sorry for saying yes when I really wanted to say no. I'm sorry for not forgiving you when you made mistakes. And I'm sorry for not listening to my body when I really needed a break. And the letter went on and on. But here's the magic. The magic is it was the first step in taking back my life and focusing on myself. And the amazing thing is when I did this, lots of other things also, but this was just really the first step. A lot of things started to change for me. All of a sudden, I had time for myself. I actually started to develop patience that I really wanted. And I was able to show up in the world in a way that I really wanted to be. So, but I had to uncover this unworthiness issue because that began to explain why I was talking to myself the way I was. And let me tell you, the I am statements are super powerful because they become our beliefs over time. And we really have to tune in here and figure out what we are saying to ourselves, because that's where we're taking action from, is what we believe. But I also had to make a change and to commit to start thinking differently. And I just share this with you, so you know what I experienced and why I'm so passionate about sharing this with others. And so I know all of our circumstances are different, but they become way less important when we look at our inner game and we start to take back the conversation taking place in our head. And that's where we can really start to cultivate that self-compassion.
I love that. And I love the fact that you took that exercise on with such like depth, because sometimes when we write letters to ourselves, we can start off with a good intention and it can spiral into like another itty bitty bully committee. Is that what you called it? That's so good. It's just, it could be another tool that could really just, tear ourselves down, but being able to forgive yourself. And I loved how you said, forgive myself for the things that I've done wrong, because so
Mhm.
often we will tear ourselves apart when we make a mistake, and making mistakes is part of life. That's how we grow and learn and move forward. Not one of us in this planet has ever got it right.
Right, right.
Right?
Yes, absolutely.
So good. And I can hear your passion. There's so much depth in your passion. It's so good that you came into this space.
Yeah. Yeah. So then I really would like to share some health benefits of starting to shift this self-talk or the way that we're thinking, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Please grab your pen
Yeah.
and paper, ladies.
So positive thinking and optimism can really affect our stress management. They're effective stress management tools. So indeed, having a more of a positive outlook on life can provide us with benefits. But when we start to do that, it also starts to improve our self-talk. So the health benefits that improving our self-talk can have is increased vitality, greater life satisfaction, improved immune function, because we're not having that stress like we did, reduced pain, better cardiovascular health, better physical well-being, less stress and less anxiety. And research suggests even that people with positive self-talk may have mental skills that allow them to solve problems better, and be more effective with coping with hardships and challenges because they are able to connect to their possibilities. And within doing this reduces the harmful effects of stress and anxiety. So when we start to engage in this negative self-talk is when we get into trouble. And as we notice our self-talk and start to tune into it, does it sound like a bully or a critic, or does it sound more like a friend? And once again, we're not going to judge ourselves here. We're just going to be curious and tune into it. Because building awareness is so powerful, because we can walk around the world for years and years and years and not pay attention to something. But when you start to build this awareness around it, you can't unsee something. You can't unnotice something. So that's why just building awareness in a judgment-free zone is so powerful in moving forward. But before we can learn to practice that self-talk, we must identify the negative thinking that happens. So there's 4 types of negative thinking that we generally fall into when we start to go down this rabbit hole of negative self-talk. So the first negative thinking category is when you blame yourself for everything. So it's called personalizing. So if you've ever been there before, like, that was all my fault, if I would have just done this, it would have all been better. So personalizing that way of thinking is we can just start to build awareness if we are falling into this
Some
thinking.
people even do that in confrontation with their spouse, right? So
Yeah,
even
yeah.
to stop a fight and just be like, okay, you're right. It was all my fault. Instead of just being like, okay, no, we need to talk about this because we both were at fault, or being able to share the hurt that you felt over a situation, because relationships are complicated at the best of days. So to be able to have that awareness of that personalizing and taking blame, even if it's not yours to carry.
Definitely. So good. Yeah.
Yeah.
The second negative thinking category is magnifying. When we magnify something, so you focus on the negative aspects of a situation, ignoring all or any positive. So we get laser focused on the situation, all the things that are going wrong, and then we are unable to see any positive, any possibility, any opportunity in that, because it's like, you can think of it like using a magnifying glass. You're just on one spot versus the whole, looking at it as the whole. So this is where we just get to build awareness here if we're signing up for this type of thinking. The next one is catastrophizing, which is you expect the worst. So signing up for the worst case scenario. And you rarely let logic or reason persuade you otherwise. So I love this one because so often we go to worst case scenario thinking, and I always like to tell my clients, that's fine if you want to sign up for that, but I'm going to invite you to also sign up for best case scenario thinking, because truly it's just as likely to happen, but we don't spend any time there. So, so it's just, then I usually get a chuckle, and then they're like, okay, I haven't considered that before. So the catastrophizing, just recognize when we're in worst case scenario mode. Like, is this true? Is this even a fact, or is this the worst possible outcome? And
That's good, because even people that have struggled with traumas,
yeah,
I've noticed that because something bad happened in the past, they think it's going to happen again. So
hmm
they almost like paint this scenario that it may never happen. I've even been at fault in this in my own marriage from past scenarios of my bad relationships and upbringing. I've brought that luggage into my marriage, and there's been times where I think, oh, I'm just going to get rejected. He's going to trade me in. He's going to abandon me. That those fears have been like, they were really, really solid in the first decade of our marriage. Thankfully, we were closing on our second decade and we're getting over all of that drama, but it is catastrophic when we can focus on those variables and not think about the best case scenario of growing old with that person, or whatever the situation that we're facing.
Definitely, yes.
So sorry to
So
keep
true.
interrupting you. I just like,
Oh no, I think that's great. I want to be a conversation. Definitely, definitely.
yeah,
Just so you can relate, and that's helping somebody else relate, and so that's perfect.
yeah.
So the last thinking category is really polarizing. So you see the world in black or white. It's either good or bad. There's nothing in between, no middle ground. So just recognizing when we're in the polarizing, have those glasses on. And when we begin to recognize these types of negative thinking, then we can start to turn them into positive thinking. This task requires some practice, and it doesn't happen overnight. But the good news is that it can be done. So I just want to share some examples and scenarios of how we can turn the negative self-talk into the positive self-talk. And it's not lying to ourselves, it's just reframing. It's just becoming a more empowering thought, and recognizing how that supports us versus the demotivating negative one. So the first one is the negative self-talk would be, I'll disappoint everyone if I change my mind. So if anyone's been there before.
Yep.
Yeah. Right. And so something might have changed, and now you have to change your mind, a circumstance or a situation. So the reframe and the positive is, I have the power to change my mind. Others will understand. We can think of it, if our friend changed their mind, would we be mad at them and be disappointed? We could say, no, I can definitely see how this now changed, and just give ourselves that permission. We don't have to be perfect. We don't have to stick with everything.
I found that with some friends that really struggle with anxiety, or especially the social anxiety.
Yeah.
They'll want to come to a gathering with a bunch of other friends, but then when that day arrives, their social anxieties will rise up, and they are not feeling like they can actually leave the house, never mind come to a gathering. So and that can play a huge, put a lot of guilt on that person if they're going to get stuck in that space. So that is such a good analogy. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. So, and that's a great example. Another great example is just, being kind to ourselves. Like, are we being that supportive friend, or are we being that critic and the bully? So here's another negative example. I failed or embarrassed myself. Like, that's a big one. Nobody wants to feel that they've failed or they've embarrassed, that they're embarrassed. But a positive reframe can be, I'm proud of myself for even trying. That took courage. So you're acknowledging that you did something that was scary and that it took courage, like just to recognize that. And doesn't that come from a place of being more empowered then, instead of like being just demotivated or feeling really criticized?
So good.
And then the next one is, I'm overweight or out of shape, so I might as well not even bother. So this is a big one that I work sometimes with my clients with, and we can reframe that to, I'm capable and strong, and I want to get healthier for me. So we're just putting into a positive vibe instead of there's no possibility. Why would I even bother?
Right. No, I've definitely fallen into that thought trap a few times.
Definitely.
Especially in the beginning stages of trying to get back into a routine of exercise or eating healthy.
Mm,
I will, it's a fight, it's a huge battle. So
definitely.
I get it.
Another one is I've never done this before and I'll be bad at it. So we can flip that more positive, empowering is this is a wonderful opportunity for me to learn from others and grow. And I know this is a big one for me that I use often because if I haven't done something before, it seems really hard and I really am resistant to it. And I have to just remind myself, actually, it's a wonderful opportunity for growth, for learning something. And, and just once you start practicing it though, it comes in much more naturally because it becomes a habit. And then that's the cool part is when we're not having to cognitively for a long time, you'll have to cognitively think of it, but then it just becomes who you are.
I love that.
So yeah, so just giving some examples, and basically this self-talk, we are describing one of my favorite quotes that my coach had shared with me, and I have it right here on my desk because I need a reminder often to stay out of the ditch. And so I just want to share this. It is stop fighting for your limitations and start fighting for your possibilities. And that was such a big one for me because yeah, I'm fighting for my excuses so many times and they're not even true. They're not even real. They're just an old story that I chose to believe. And I'm not acknowledging any of the possibilities available to me.
That's so good. That is such a good quote. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I just have one last piece to share, just a few tips of how to start to have the positive self-talk, how to start that shift. The first one is to identify negative self-traps, negative talk self-traps. So any scenarios that you recognize that bring you into serious self-doubt. For example, maybe family issues are particularly hard for someone. Just pinpointing the experience when you have increased negative self-talk can really prepare you. You can prepare then to show up differently. You can kind of give yourself that pep talk and kind of, okay, I'm going into a challenging situation where I usually beat myself up. I'm going to practice it today intentionally. Another good tip is to check in with our feelings, to really stop back if we're having a bad day and evaluate our self-talk. What, is it that negative self-talk? How can I be more supportive and what would I tell my friend if she was having this bad day? And really start to tune in with our feelings and emotions. Another great tip is find humor. Laughter can really help us relieve tension and stress. And even if you just need that boost, watch a YouTube video of funny animals or call your friend, that always makes you chuckle, and just really intentionally invite in that humor because it really just stops that autopilot. It interrupts that old programming and we can go on and start to shift that thinking. Another way is surround yourself with positive people. We really can absorb the outlook and emotions of people around us. So just recognize if we're spending a lot of time around negativity and if we're taking it on. And then
I really don't want to interrupt you there, but that is such an important piece of who we surround ourselves with. Because they say, what is that? There's a quote or somebody, actually, probably numerous people that have said it across my path of learning. My own personal development journey is like, show me your top 5 friends and I'll tell you who you are, kind of thing, right?
Yes.
We become like a chameleon almost sometimes, where we become our environment. And so if we're always around people that are gossiping and tearing others down, we are going to be of that nature. And I know this even from my own personal journey. I used to, back in my 20s, I used to hang out with this family and everybody would come to their house for coffee. They'd always have pots of coffee on, and we'd sit there. And I would always just be part of conversations where you're tearing people down. And I never really recognized that we were doing that. And then one day, there was this one person of conversation that was happening. That person, not only a half an hour later, walked through the front door to come for coffee, because it was that place that everybody came for coffee. And then all of a sudden they were sweet as punch to them. And then they just started tearing somebody else down. So I had thought to myself, I'm like, okay, great. So what happens if I get up and leave the table and walk away? Are they going to start talking about me the same way? And quite often, most likely, and I can't say if they did or if they didn't, but they probably did, because that
Mhm.
was their nature. And I recognized that even in my 20s, and I'm like, this doesn't feel right to me. Like,
Mhm.
I can't keep in surrounding myself around these gossip circles. It's not serving me well. And this was long before I actually done some of the deep work in me. So,
Mhm. Yeah, such a great observation, and so great of you to recognize it at such a young age. Like, instead of just signing up for it, recognizing like, oh, that doesn't feel good. I might don't want to participate in that. Um,
because
because that energy we really do take on.
it is so true. And we typically will fall into that environment or that energy, especially if we don't have that full depth of an understanding of who we are and our values. We will fall into that because we want that acceptance. We want to be, part of the clique,
Mhm. Right, right.
So, yeah, so if you find yourself like around I call them negative Nellies,
Yes. Yeah,
you know,
exactly. Yeah.
we'll fall into that space, that headspace,
Mhm.
and then we just carry it on into our own personal self-talk in the way we
Right.
put ourselves down.
So true. So true.
Mm.
Yeah. So really the last way is to give ourselves positive affirmations. So sometimes seeing positive words or even inspiring images or quotes can be enough to redirect our thoughts. And that's all we're doing is interrupting that thought pattern. So we can post small reminders in our office, in our home, anywhere where we spend a lot of time. I even recommend to my clients when they're working on something to put it on post-it notes and put it around the house, like be a friend, don't be that bully, or improving my positive self-talk. Just little reminders throughout the day that just stop you for just a second is enough and we start to rewire those neural pathways in our brain, and then that's when it starts to become that habit. So I just want to wrap up with this last quote that I find super powerful when referring to self-talk. Um, and so self-talk is the most powerful form of communication because it either empowers us or it defeats us. So I'm
Mhm.
just going to say that one more time. Self-talk is the most powerful form of communication because it either empowers us or it defeats us.
That's so true. Tears you down or builds you up, right?
And
Like,
it's all within. We can do this. If we are a good friend, we know exactly how to be a good friend. We just need to do that for ourselves too.
it's a nice reminder. So, and I love the sticky notes, being able
Mhm.
to remind yourself and put them in multiple places, because
Yes.
I know people that do struggle with ADHD, and
Mm.
have an undiagnosed ADHD. Who knows? My daughter's is trying to tell me that, yes, mom, you do have it. I don't
Mhm.
think so, but maybe I do. And she'll talk about object I don't know, where you see something and all of a sudden just becomes part of the environment. You don't
Mhm.
actually recognize that it's there anymore. So
Right.
if those sticky notes, if you have to plaster them on every wall, mirror, fridge, cupboard,
Mhm.
bathroom, toilet lid, whatever, just so that you have those constant reminders so they don't end up just blending into the environment. And then you just overlooking them anyway, because you need to be able to, if you're going to do the effort to put them out there, make sure they're all over the place until you can get that transformation happening within your mind.
Definitely, definitely. It's so, so powerful.
It is. I used to do like lipstick or dry erase markers all over my mirror.
Yeah, that's a really good one too. It's just that pattern interrupter because like 95% of our day is on autopilot. So anytime we can start to, create that new neural pathway happening to be that more supportive person to ourselves, that, the better outcomes we're going to have, the better person we're going to be, the better wife, mom, caregiver, whatever it is.
Mhm.
Um,
That is so true. So being in the, so basically like this topic is not just for caregivers. This is for anybody that really
Oh,
wants to
yes.
transform their relationship with themselves, because
Mhm.
that is one of the first, like you said, it's the most important relationship, because
Mhm.
everything really stems from the way we treat ourselves.
Mhm.
um, when you neglect yourself, we end up finding ourselves continually serving, but then we feel unappreciated. And I think
Mhm.
a lot of the times when we fall into that headspace, it's because we don't appreciate, we don't recognize our own self-worth. Like you said, with your
Yeah.
writing exercise that you did, where you were had to write that letter to yourself, you didn't recognize all that unworthiness that you were holding on to. But if we, and a lot of times when we get stuck into that place, we'll deflect, right? Like they don't appreciate
Yes.
me, they don't
Yes.
appreciate me, right? And
Yep.
I'm just getting this revelation right now. So just by this conversation. So I really truly appreciate this, because this is super valuable for a dear friend of mine that's stuck in this space. And a lot of it is because we'll attack ourselves and we don't feel valuable or worthy, so then we deflect. Right,
Mhm.
it's not our
Definitely.
fault, we didn't bring
Mhm.
ourselves to this place, it's because you don't appreciate well I do for you. Right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep, that's so, so true. And just like tuning into it. If we don't just take the time, we're just repeating that same thought pattern. But if we're like, okay, wait a minute, I'm going to have an honest conversation with myself. Where's this coming from? What is it? And just taking the time. That's the thing I never did, was even take the time to tune in. I was just on playing the same radio station all the time and never recognizing that I didn't tune in.
Yeah, if we just keep running, we just keep running.
Hmm.
You're not seeing the people beside you, you're not seeing the forest amongst the trees, you know what I mean? Like we just keep
Hmm.
running. But we need to stop sometimes and just take that time and the effort and nurturing our own self, so that we have more to give. And then
Hmm.
we can feel that appreciation from others, when we can appreciate ourselves first. So.
Definitely. So true.
Oh, this is so good, love. So
Mhm.
just out of curiosity, if somebody is like, oh, Kelly, I love what you're doing. How in the world do I get in touch with you? How do I, like, can you work with me even though I'm not a caregiver? All the things, and
Mm.
how do they, how does your program, do you work one-on-one? Do you have group coaching? Do you do a discovery call? I have lots of questions. So you just want to let
Yeah. Well,
the community know how they get plugged in if they want to work with you.
yeah, the first one is I offer a free Facebook group called the Healthy Caregiver. And I do weekly live trainings. I do events about every 6 weeks that are also free events. So coming up starting Sunday, I have a free masterclass. That's a 5-day masterclass that is for caregivers. And the link to join is inside the Facebook group. So that's really like a 5-day, really supportive. We talk about self-care. We talk about building awareness. We talk about the building healthy boundaries. We really tune into all self-care, how to rejuvenate, all of those pieces. So yes, it's for caregivers, but everybody is truly a caregiver. Whether you're a mom, you own a dog, we all play that role. And so yeah, so that's the best way to connect with me, is through the Healthy Caregiver. Um, I do one-on-one coaching right now, and I have a free discovery call to see what. I have a few different programs. I have a 6-week program, I have a 12-week program, I have a 6-month program. What is exactly appropriate for you? But really, really just tuning in and seeing what is important to you, what your goals are, and how to support you and help you be accountable to move through those goals, and to see what's holding us back. What is our limiting beliefs? What's throwing us off track? And I often work with people that aren't caregivers as well. We work with a lot of people that have anxiety issues that are really holding them back, because that was something that really held me back. And I was able to work through, and just really tuning in once again with, is the story I'm telling myself true? Is it a true fact, or is it a story that I've signed up for over and over and over again? So that's really, I hope that explains that. And I have a website too. It's called sparkyourjourney.net.
It's called
Um,
what?
sparkyourjourney.net is the website.
That's so good. That's so good. I loved how you said that we're all caregivers, because I was gonna, like, when you were sharing, I'm like, so what classifies as a caregiver? And I was had that question going, and I'm like, wait a minute, we all caregivers in some way, shape, or form, whether it be in our workplace, in our homes, even if you're single and no kids, like you said, if you have a dog or a goldfish, like, we're a caregiver, right? So I loved how you highlighted on that without me even having to ask the question. So thank you for that. So go ahead, go to Kaley's website, Spark Your Journey, sparkyourjourney.net. And go to her free Facebook group and dive into some of the tools that she and the great information that she's dishing out. She'll definitely, her heart is so pure and so genuine. She's done the work. You can tell with her sensitive, compassionate, empathetic way of just sharing her journey with us today. And just some of these tips they're amazing. I absolutely love these tips. The negative thinking, your 4 tips of negative thinking, like the blaming, the personalizations, the magnifying, the catastrophic, how do you say that word?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I have to practice a lot though, but the catastrophizing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Or worst case scenario.
Yes, and polarizing. So yeah, definitely, I'm sure she deep dives into each of these tips in her Facebook group. So go and get yourself plugged in for some more self-discovery and self-talk tools for your toolbox. Like, we all need as many tools as possible.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, I want to thank you, Stacy, for inviting me to share this topic here in your group that I'm so passionate about, and just for connecting me with your community. I truly appreciate it.
I very much appreciate you taking the time and just coming and sharing your wisdom and your heart with us today. I thank you.
Thank you.